Okay, time for another board. Today is 10-9-8. Um, so out of positions range is the same as it has been in the earlier video. It's a 15% another gun range. Button will be flatting a condensed linear range of about 12%. Some stronger hands are in here because of population flatting tendencies. I would pretty much pure 3-bet ace king, queens, jacks, tens, and probably nines, as well as a lot of these, especially suited wheel aces, but population likes to flat those. They definitely find a flat, so I've included them in the range. We're playing this as under the gun has open 3x, button has flatted, and both blinds have folded. So we have a 7.5 blind pot with 100 big blind starting stacks. Every player has a 33, 75, and 150% pot bet on every street, along with a 75% raise as well as an all-in. And let's get to the flop. So to start, 10-9-8. I think once you start learning about ranges, you start to realize, like if you were to pick like a top 5 worst flop out of the deck for like an under the gun opening range, like 10-9-8 monotone of a suit you don't have is probably just like top 5, right? Like, it's probably like the second or third worst flop. Like Jack 10-9 is bad, 10-9-8 is bad, 4-5, 6-7. These like very connected boards are really bad for you. And just looking at like in positions range, literally everything hits this, right? King, queen, king, jack, king 10, queen. All of these hands have like double gutter, pair, 2-pair, open ender, at least something, right? Like sixes through deuces have nothing, and like suited aces are like sometimes backdoor flush draw. But other than that, like this just smacks the button flatting range, and so it makes sense that we are going to check a lot, just because of how good this is for in positions range. But so it's important to know that like out of position has an equity advantage, but I would be surprised. Yeah, so we have an EV disadvantage, right? We really just like absolutely ace king, ace queen, I guess it improves more often. These wheel aces, like ace high just never gets the showdown. Like we just never get the showdown that hand. If you look at aces equity on this board, right, like it's dead a lot. Like queen jack, it just has it killed. Hands like jack 9, jack 10, king jack are all like incredibly good shape against aces. Yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of hands that, like, if you think like 7-8 suited, jack 10, like, yeah, this is just not a board where out of position realizes its equity a lot, and so it has an EV disadvantage while having an equity advantage, and that should make sense. So strategy-wise, we check almost 100%. I bet if I send this down to like perfect, we would, have almost a pure check, pretty much a pure check. In positions bet size now becomes like 2/3 and sometimes overbet, which is interesting. I'm not overbetting with queen jack here, although maybe I should be. I'm not 6-5 suited, I'm not overbetting. Ace 7 suited, I'm not overbetting. Ace jack, these are big bets with some checks. King 10, I might check that back. Queen 10, the important thing here is to block like nutted hands, right? King queen, queen jack, queen 10, 7-8, 6-5, blocking 6-7, and then these pairs just kind of try and get the showdown a lot. These wheel aces just kind of like say, all right, I'm over bluffing if I start turning these in bluffs. But once you start blocking the nuts, that's when like these big bets start coming out, which is new, right? I think on a lot of earlier boards, like in position was taking a lot of like 1/3. So this is new. So let's see. To an overbet, aces sometimes just like pure give up, right? Especially, let's see, what's the main driving factor? I don't know. Kings almost entirely a pure, like sometimes they just fold. Once you start having like gutters and blocking the nuts, you start calling. King queen, like 2 overs in a pure gutter, you need a backdoor flush draw. Sometimes top pair even starts folding. That's crazy, right? Like that should be crazy. that even that starts bluffing. Hands like Queen Jack start raising against overbets even. Top set, but middle set and bottom set don't. Sometimes seventh, a pair and an open ender, just muck on this board. That's nuts to me, right? This is a dynamic that I don't think is playing out in the games that I'm playing, and that's an opportunity for us as those that are players that are studying this spot. Ace King, Ace Queen. Ace Queen had 2 overs in the gut shot, pure give up. King Queen, call. Why? I don't know. I assume it has something to do with like the ace X blockers that are just like checking back most of the time, and we don't block those. But just how strong in position is on this board, and just like how much we struggle to defend. Big bets. This is how I think things are playing out more often. Aces and kings become a call. Ace Queen mixes with a backdoor flush draw, like always folds, or it always calls, without it, it always folds. That's when sevens become a call. But it's cool to know that like in position gets a lot of sizes here, and a lot of sizes that I'm not using. And so like on these like very dynamic boards, the larger bet makes more sense to me. Whereas on like 7-4 deuce, or 8-8-3, like the 1/3 makes sense. So that's cool to know, right? That is interesting. Looking at, let's see, we'll do bet big, call, and then let's take a look at turn cards. So I guess this makes sense in that like when out of position check calls, they have a strong hand, right? It's similar to c-betting with air on a7-3 and then getting called. You're in a lot of trouble because if you have air, like a lot of times your air is just dead to like top pair, and so you're never like aces. Like a lot of times in position isn't dead here, but like it means that out of position has a strong hand, and so their equity is going to be pretty good, which I guess makes sense. Obviously, hands are times that like open enders make straights. I guess like the jack is important. My guess would be because like in position is bluffing with a lot of queen X hands, and out of position just like folded all of its ace queen. Sure, and so we never really have the nut straight. But this is interesting, right? Yeah, board pairing cards really bad for in position. That makes sense. They're repping like, a straight or like a set or 2 pair, and like that obviously like reduces the combos of it. Fair enough. That makes sense. Let's make it even worse for us as the under the gun raiser. And where'd you go? Where did you go? This is going to be so tilting. Okay. I would be tilted watching me do that, scrolling through the files. Because obviously, I bet you guys saw it as soon as I opened it up. Hopefully me drinking. It's not too loud. Drinking this coffee at 2 a.m. What a lifestyle. Running Sims at 2 a.m. on a Monday night. But I can guarantee you other rigs not running Sims at 2 a.m. on a Monday night. So we'll see where they are in a year. Anyway, let's get back to this. Get back to this board again. Like this has made it worse for out of position. So like obviously checking. I don't actually remember how bad like the equities were. I imagine like the equities are pretty similar, but like the EV has just gotten a lot worse. And so if you're check, this is probably what's doing it, right? It's not a bug. I just unclicked a button somehow. So last 3 videos are ruined because I accidentally clicked the button that I didn't realize. Great. Still big bets. Still some overbets. I don't remember the exact frequency, but it seems like less overbets. And a lot of these, like every size is fine with every combo. It seems to just be for like balance reasons and combinatorics reasons that we choose that. Let's do bet big. Again, some check raises. mostly from like nutted hands and hands blocking the nutted hands. It's interesting to me, well, not interesting, but it makes sense to me that like King Jack is a better check raise than Ace Jack, because when you turn the queen, when you turn your open ender, you just have the nuts, right? Like you can stack like Queen 10, right? Or you can stack Jack 10, right? That has the second nut straight. You have the nut straight, and you just win all the money. So nutted draw type hands make sense. Again, it seems equity driven with the backdoor flush draw. With the flush draw, like we're raising more. Without the backdoor flush draw, we're check calling more. That makes sense. So let's play out a turn and see what's good for both players. Again, we saw this on the rainbow board that the jack is pretty bad for out of position. Diamonds don't seem noticeably worse. They seem like just the same, as like every other card, like of its offsuit brand. Like, okay, so like the 3 of diamonds is slightly worse than the 3 of clubs, but the jack of diamonds is better than the jack of clubs. So it doesn't seem like the flush is really that, that bad. And like the 7 of diamonds, let's just run the 7 of diamonds here. Not that, obviously we're checking. But yeah, I mean, I guess this goes check. I don't believe this goes check, by the way. But, well, maybe I do. It seems like to bet here you have to have some sort of nutted hand, and like even 10s, 9s, 8s, and 7s are checking a lot. Queen Jack is taking, yeah, so I believe it goes check 70% of the time. I believe that. But yeah, it's good to note that like throughout the series I've kind of seen that like one, flushes aren't as bad as I thought they were. I didn't think they were like the worst card ever. Or I thought they were kind of like they just nuked equity, but they don't really nuke equity against like very tight ranges. And yeah, I think this makes sense. I think just like equity driven bluffs, nutted type bluffs, so like King Jack as opposed to Ace Jack, that makes sense. Yeah, I can dig it. So let's just make this even worse. And just go to the full monotone board. When you 3-bet Ace King and you get the 10-9-8 of a different suit, and you just check give up. That's poker, baby. Yeah, this board never loaded. I mean, I imagine this is just like really bad for out of position. Yeah, I can see it already. But I think this has gotten better somehow. Well, I mean, what do I know? So maybe this is a factor again of there's not a lot of Broadway on this board. So out of position has a lot of like high 1 diamond card hands, right? And so it's become slightly better for out of position. Just because like we can turn a flush that's a strong flush more often, as opposed to on Ace Queen Jack when like all of our 1 diamond combos are kind of like reduced by what's on the board. Here we have all of them, and so that makes sense. So let's just see, check. Interesting. This is like slightly perplexing. Like I don't get why. So on the rainbow board we were just kind of like overbetting, and now we're like 1/3ing. I guess maybe it's just like it's really hard for us to get 3 streets of value with a larger size. Maybe it's something like that. I don't really get it. But let's just run this out. Yeah, a lot of this is just like we're getting value from flush draws and sure. 5s of the diamond check call. Good to know. Sure, and let's just see. Yeah, this makes sense, and this seems to be why, right, or like a continuation of why this board is actually kind of better than two-tone because like when we turn the fourth diamond, we actually have a lot of one diamond hands that are high diamonds, as opposed to ace queen jack or ace jack 5, where the more Broadway cards, the less flush combos we seem to have. Or at least that's my hypothesis, right? Like Pio doesn't tell you any of that. It's a black box, and we have to interpret it, and that's my interpretation. So yeah, an interesting board. I don't think I fully digested it, but a lot of good takeaways, I think. Especially in terms of monotone boards, in terms of which combos to check raise. You know, is our draw nutted? Can we stack other draws when they get there? Turn sizings to use as imposition. Yeah, a lot of good takeaways. Anyway, that's it. That's 10-9-8.